familiar faces. And so my role tonight is to facilitate the conversation, and it's a real honor and privilege to be here at your March Mix and Mingle. So we're going to dive straight in. We have got some really great questions, and I've got a really fabulous representation of tourism experts here, not only from the hotel industry, but also tourism marketing experts, and also the hospitality and restaurant industry. So, you know, it's no secret that the pandemic turned the travel and tourism industry upside down. And, you know, Commissioner, appreciated some of your pragmatism around some of those ideas around, gosh, you know, COVID, can you believe it? Pandemic has actually taught us some new tricks and things, and maybe doing things differently. So now here we are nearly a year later, with vaccines becoming more and more accessible. People's desires to travel are at the highest that we've seen. And you know, the recovery plans are in motion, right? Whether that be vaccines, whether that be, you know, guidelines starting to flex and open up. I want to share a few statistics with you to kind of just, I guess, offer a bit of perspective. And, you know, we've looked at Longwoods International. It's been a great data source for the tourism industry. And at the moment, 81% of American travelers do actually have plans to travel in the next 6 months. So that's a really interesting statistic. And what's been really interesting about that is that it's been a 16-point increase from January. So that's really good momentum there, right? 31% of travelers are choosing destinations they can drive to as opposed to fly. So another interesting nuance there. And then 38% of American travelers plan to hold off on traveling until they receive the vaccine, while 33% say that the vaccine has no impact on their travel plans at all. So the data that we've seen shows that LGBTQ travelers have an even stronger desire to travel and feel more comfortable flying, staying in hotels, attending an event while they're traveling. So all of this is really kind of very wonderful news to be sort of sharing with you tonight. We all know Chicago is a top destination for LGBTQ travelers, from the city's inclusive and diverse neighborhoods to LGBTQ nightlife, hotspots, and world-class attractions, culture, and entertainment. So, you know, you could say that Chicago not only is the best kept secret, but it really has it all for our industry. To paint the tourism picture for you, in 2019, Chicago welcomed more than 59 million visitors. Approximately 4.1 million of LGBTQ visitors to Chicago visited in 2019. So that's about a 7% of total visitors. The state of Illinois welcomed a record 120 million visitors in 2019. So that's a major economic boost for the state. And, you know, I'm sure you've heard some of these numbers out there, but $43.1 billion in economic and tax revenue. And that was a 1.3 billion increase over the prior year. So I think just let some of those numbers and sort of the positive sentiment kind of, you know, go. And my first question really is to Sandi. So, you know, Sandi, maybe just talk us through about your success in engaging with and influencing LGBTQ travelers and that audience as it relates to your business.
Absolutely. Well, thank you everyone for having me. So happy to be here. So as it relates to my business, I always, and I can't stress enough how much representation is important. And whether it be LGBTQ plus, or whether it be African American or Asian, representation is important. And I honestly was on another panel this morning. It was an international panel that we were pretty much talking about the same thing. And it's people shop where they know that they are welcomed. And how do we know that we're welcomed? When we see that represented in our marketing. And even where I am at the Godfrey Hotel, we have a creative director. And I send him a concept and say, hey, I need something for, you know, for pertaining to the wedding market. Well, for the longest, he would send me back a white man and a white woman. And I would send it back to him and say, this is not a representation of our customers. And this is not a representation of who we want. We want to embrace everyone. So that is okay, but I need 5 more that are representing different people and different demographics, because the reality is that everyone needs to be seen and everyone needs to feel welcome. So for my market segment, and for my hotel, and just in general, I always stress that marketing is important, representation is important, and you need to always make sure that you're speaking to your customer. Your customer does not look one way. Your customer looks, are multiple people with multiple backgrounds and multiple genders, and that needs to be shown in your business. So we've been doing that a lot for the last couple of years, and we can definitely tell. We can see it in our travelers that come through our doors because they feel welcome. They see themselves represented.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So critically important. Rickey, what about you and your line of work? I mean, have you got some success and learnings in this, in this certain demographic that you can share with everyone?
Yeah, so my career has been interesting because I was with Let Us Entertain You for 7.5 years customer facing,
Right.
and then moved over to Hog Salt restaurant group as their director of sales, and was there for 1.5 years pre-pandemic, and then everything changed. So my position now, I'm seeing the back end data. I'm seeing how many bookings Sandi has coming in the door that day because they use Tock. I'm seeing, what Let Us Entertain You restaurants are doing, but I'm seeing also what the mom and pop restaurants are doing. So it's interesting that the large corporate businesses are the ones that are succeeding right now, and the mom and pop, we are seeing more and more of those fall off. And just like Sandi said, representation is so important. We're seeing our Black-owned businesses, our minority-owned businesses in general, and our women-owned businesses and our LGBT businesses be the ones that need the most help. But the ones that are succeeding are the ones who are making sure that the marketing that they push out looks like the folks and the community that they want to create. I do not remember what year it was, but the chamber, when I was on the board, we did our first ever LGBT QIA wedding expo. Mm-hmm. And at the time I was working at Let Us Entertain You restaurants, and the number of same-sex weddings and commitment ceremonies that we booked that year quadrupled because we participated in this wedding expo. Let Us had always been there. These folks always knew about us, but it was just a matter of getting out there and saying, hey, we're here. Love is love. We support you. You have a safe place with us. So I think those folks who reach out and get involved are the ones that are going to be the most successful.
Yeah, it feels like it's just so critical, isn't it, to put yourself in the consumer's shoes. And I know we say that, and at times it sounds clichéic, but it's so important to do that, and not just from yourself, but also diversity, across the board, like doing things differently and showing up differently, and it just makes so much impact. Jeremy, I'm going to assume we've got Cory on as well because I can't see him, but before I put him on the spot, I just want to make sure we've got Cory.
Just a moment.
While we're finding Cory and we're going to pin him, Sandi, Rickey, I asked in advance of this, and you shared, and I'm not going to share it with the group, but I asked for a photograph of like your most sort of fun destination or gayest event or moment. Would you like to share maybe your stories there?
Yeah, you could have shared it. It's fine. My photo was a photo in front of Stonewall. And it was IGLTA, International Gay and Lesbian Travel Association, a phenomenal association. Every year they go to a gay-friendly destination. And we were in New York, the Mecca, last year or 2 years ago. And I just made it my business to go to Stonewall because of the history. And it was just a sense of, you could just kind of just stand there and just feel everything that happened in 1969. And, for me, I just imagine just being back in that moment and just thinking about where we are now and where we've come from, and the many people that have that fought and still fighting to be accepted. And, it's just, love is love, and it should be that simple, but it never has been that simple. And I hope and pray that one day everyone will see that, it is just that simple. So just for me to stand in that place where a big part of the movement began, it was just historic for me.
That's awesome. I love the picture too. Thank you for sharing.
Super cute in it too.
Yeah, it was super. You were super cute in it. Absolutely. Rickey, what about you?
I did not do my homework and I did not send you a photo. So for that, I apologize. For me, if I would have shared a picture, it would have been my wedding day. Like for me, the fact that is something growing up in a Southern Baptist church with a very religious, conservative family from Mississippi, I never, ever would have thought that would be something that was possible. And being able to have that ceremony in our church and all of those things, it was embracing all parts of me. And for me, being gay is about embracing all parts. And that it would have been the photo had I done the homework that I would have shared.
I wasn't going to tell anyone at all. I was just going to gloss over that. And
honesty is the best policy. Let's just put it out there.
Yeah, exactly. I know we're having some technical difficulties with Cory getting on, so we'll just rapid fire Cory when he finally gets with us. So we're going to go completely rogue and off script here, right, with our questions. So I think thinking about some of this, like in your opinion, Chicago, what's the most underrated LGBTQ friendly visitor experience in Chicago and why?
For me, it's honestly, so full disclosure, I recently moved right across the border in Indiana. And it is one thing, I'm originally from Indianapolis, so I knew that it was going to be different, but I think the fact that I took for granted how walking down the street with my white husband did not get nasty looks from people. So I think the most underrated thing is the level of normalcy and the level of acceptance that happens on a daily basis. I think for me is very underrated, and moving to a place that is still one of the most liberal pocket of Indiana, still moving here it just makes me appreciate those 10 years living in the city, that I still work in the city and go out in the city, but it just makes me appreciate that. So for me, I think the normal everyday acceptance is the most underrated.
That's awesome. I've done so many shows and travel shows internationally, and I can't tell you how much feedback we get, just about this region, about Chicago, and to your point, just how accepting and comfortable the LGBTQ traveler feels. It's like there's no worry about anything. So yeah, I couldn't agree more. I've heard it a lot. Sandi, what about you?
For me, I am a huge fan of Hyde Park. I live close to the area. It's a fantastic location. It's so walkable. Of course, you have the University of Chicago campus, which is absolutely beautiful. You have Midway Plaisance, and it has so much rich culture and history behind it. There are a lot of little mom and pop stores, and one of my favorite restaurants in the city is called Virtue. That's also there. They're on Tock as well. But it's a great LGBTQ family friendly location.
That's awesome.
And underrated, because a lot of people, especially a lot of Northsiders, don't travel as far as Hyde Park, even though it's not super far. It's 20 minutes on Lakeshore Drive, but it really is. It's a beautiful place.
That's great. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing. Cory, Jobe, welcome. We have you now. You can hear us loud and clear.
I think so, right? Hopefully you can all hear me.
Absolutely.
What a day. I've been on participating in 3 webinars today, and the 4th one's no good. But we're here finally, right?
We are.
Gotta love technology.
Totally. It's our new reality, isn't it, with COVID technology. We were just talking about one of the most underrated LGBTQ friendly visitor experiences in Chicago and why. And maybe if we throw you that question, and then I have another follow-up question for you.
The most underrated?
Yeah.
Well, I just cut in. And I apologize that I've just jumped in here, but as my time as the director of the Illinois Office of Tourism, I made it my goal to really show the world how welcome LGBTQ plus travelers can be across the state. And I think it's surprising. I grew up in southern Illinois, spent most of my career in central Illinois, and then I'm back in southern Illinois now. And it does surprise me how things have changed over the last few years and how welcoming most businesses and most people are. I think underrated in Chicago by the LGBT traveler, I would say probably neighborhoods, not the gay neighborhoods per se, but Chicago is made up of so many wonderful neighborhoods, and just understanding all those neighborhoods and getting to experience and explore them as a traveler. I think a lot of times people might have just thought of Chicago for market days or gay pride or Boys Town, and the neighborhoods in the city are so unique and rewarding and full of surprises and so much fun that you could just spend a weekend exploring a new neighborhood. That's what I probably miss the most about Chicago too, is all the wonderful neighborhoods that you can just immerse yourself in. And I think that's kind of the little surprise that visitors can have once they come to the city.
Yeah, and that's a nice segue to the question I was going to ask you at the top of this. But, I had the privilege of working with you as the director of the Illinois Office of Tourism, and we had spent a lot of time around diversity and inclusion, marketing to the LGBTQ traveler. Can you maybe talk to us about the launch of Amazing for All and the campaign in 2018? And I think, you hit on a couple of things there around neighborhoods and diversity and inclusion beyond some of the bigger festivals and events. Can you maybe just talk to everyone tonight, just give a high level overview of that? Because that wasn't just about Chicago, it was also encompassing around the state as well.
I hope I don't have, can you believe we did that with a Republican governor too, right? Weird. No. But, it was a governor that understood the economic impact of the LGBTQ plus community and how we all like to travel. And Amazing for All was, again, it was a way that we could involve all of us as everyday citizens in that state that feel so proud to live and to work and to raise our families and grow our careers in the state. And we wanted to showcase that pride and Amazing for All around the world and tell it through tell everything about the state through the eyes of all of us as citizens. And it wasn't just a Chicago thing. Again, for the international traveler, most travelers knew of Chicago. I was just surprised when I became state travel director that we weren't advertising or promoting around the world our wonderful city, but also the connectivity to Galena or to Oak Park, to the Frank Lloyd Wright architecture, or to Chicago North Shore, but then downstate to Springfield and further south to where I'm at now along the Mississippi. But, Amazing for All was just an opportunity to showcase our pride in our state and how that had a ripple effect all throughout the world. It was quite inspiring to see bumps in travel from the UK, Germany, Canada, Mexico. It was well received, and really, I'm here in downstate Alton, Illinois, along the Mississippi. We have a vibrant business community filled with gay and lesbian business owners that are really proud to call Alton home, and you see that all across the state and obviously in Chicago. So that's what really Amazing for All was about. was we had so much pride amongst ourselves in this community, and we wanted to share that with the world.
That's great. Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's still a wonderful piece of art in the district that still stands true to that, and we've had a lot of fun with that. I want to share a popular quote from an author, Adam Osborne, and the quote is, "The most valuable thing you can make is a mistake, and you can't learn anything from being perfect." And so this is it's a great context for my next question. And maybe Sandi, we'll start with you on this one, but what are some of the biggest or most valuable lessons that you've learned from in the past as it relates to LGBTQ tourism specifically?
I think it's so beneficial for companies to have consultants, so that they are, everyone's into the DEI, which is important. And it's how are you relaying your messaging, and I think that is one of the components that I think a lot more companies, and hopefully a lot more companies, will start to invest in, because it's so needed. Because people don't know what they don't know, and even within LGBTQ plus, and we have every other letter in the alphabet, even within some still don't know, they don't understand, certain elements of it. So just having someone that's coming in and training and just giving the fundamentals, about your LGBTQ plus traveler is super important, as well as having the support of your tourism bureau. Tourism as well as your state is important, because it's so much bigger than just your one company. And once you have the tourism bureau on board, they're showcasing your entire city, they're showcasing your entire state, and campaigns such as that, that is what's important, and that's what's going to bring more revenue, because you see something that's, your state is inclusive, that makes a huge difference than just one hotel or one restaurant.
Yeah, totally, absolutely. Rickey, what about you and your industry? Have you got anything you'd like to share there with everyone?
Absolutely. I think from my time at Lettuce, as I started to ramp up my involvement with the chamber, and Lettuce was starting to reap some financial benefits. One thing that I sat down with my boss at the time, who was Maureen Larson, who's still at Lettuce, and she's a partner, and she has a trans son. And she was like, I just want to make sure that Lettuce is not doing further harm in tokenizing the gay community, because we are now starting to make a lot of money from this community. So what can we do to invest and be a part of the solution if we are going to be, marketing to and going after these LGBT specific events, and with LGBT attendees, and working with LGBTQIA folks? So I think making sure that it's not just about getting the money, because we know that LGBT folks spend, the spend is there, but it's about also being a part of the solution, about making sure that inclusion is happening in and out of your restaurant or hotel or wedding venue or whatever you have as well. So I think that would be my biggest lesson.
Yeah. So let's go a bit deeper on that, because it's fascinating, isn't it? It's like, it's striking that balance of it not being a box ticking exercise, right? And so you're all marketers, you've been in this position of trying to strike that balance. Like, have you got any learnings or anything that you'd like to share, and as it relates to any of you, around how you've struck that balance previously? I've stumped them.
I think that, once again, I don't remember the year, because apparently I'm 105 years old now and don't have a memory anymore. One thing that, again, I don't work for Lettuce anymore, but I keep talking about it. The Lettuce got incredibly involved and sponsored the end of the year chamber gala one year.
Right.
And did like a heavy sponsorship, and it was an amazing event. And with that, they were incredibly intentional of saying, like, we want people to, there were some internal meetings about, we want people to know we did this, but we don't want people to think we did it just for the marketing sake. Right. So the end of the consensus at the executive level was, all right, we're just going to leave it. Like, if the LGBT chamber wants to talk about it and the attendees want to talk about it, let's do it. But we are happy to be tagged anywhere, anything like that. But we don't want to come out and say, this is what we did for this group. That's a weird tension, because then you have some people who are like, were they ashamed? And that wasn't they were not ashamed, but like you said, it's this weird, delicate balance.
Yeah. Yeah. So thinking about looking forward now, if only we had a crystal ball, right? But I'm keen to hear your thoughts about the future of LGBTQ tourism, both in Chicago and I guess more broadly to Cory around the state, in a post-COVID world, and how that's shifted your outlook and your thinking about the recovery. Is it, more important, less important? Is some of these lessons, based on some of the data that you've seen and heard? Cory, maybe you want to kick us off on that?
Sure. I think the recovery will be more of a, we're focused, for those of you who don't know, I run now a DMO that is encompassing 6 counties that anchors Route 66 and the Great River Road, Southwest Illinois. And, our success through navigating through COVID, and now what post-COVID travel looks like is more local, road trip, more localized, 2 to 4 hour drive. So will LGBTQ travel, is it on our radar? I will be honest, no, not right now, but it will be, and we're not going to forget about it. But I'm going through this exercise right now that we need to look more like who we are as a community in our marketing. Right now, we're very white. I just say it like it is, and the area I represent is white, but not all white. And we are going through the process of looking more like who we are and what we love as locals, to tell our new story in the space. LGBTQ travel, I think, obviously I would think the LGBTQ community will probably be the first ones to step out and do travel more on a global scale. And so we might be the pioneers in the travel space and testing the luxury space, maybe even a road trip space as well. But for my destination, it's not at the top of mind at the moment, but it's on our radar for sure.
Right. Sandi, how about in your world post-COVID? What does that look like for your hotels and the industry, and from your perspective?
As it pertains to LGBTQ plus travel, it's the same as it was pre-COVID. Our marketing is going to, still be a representation of all of our travelers. So we're just going to make sure that we continue to just have that, that messaging out there. I think we've done a pretty good job as far as being out there to the LGBTQ community. So we're going to just continue to push that message and encourage, other hotels and other venues to do the same.
Great. Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you. Rickey, what about you? Post-COVID world crystal ball.
Yeah, I think that because of civil unrest and just the deep division, I think that people are going to go, the LGBTQIA travelers are going to go where they feel most safe or where they can travel with large groups. So first place that comes to mind is, one of the very few camping trips I've ever done is Starved Rock. And going down to Starved Rock, we actually pulled up and there was a big commune of a large gay group from Chicago that was camping in Starved Rock. So in my mind, I now associate, even though it's in Central Illinois, where I have spent 7 years of my life going to college and post-college career as well, it doesn't have the track record of being the most LGBTQIA friendly, but now in my mind, because I pulled up and saw that, Starved Rock is a place that I feel like my husband and I could go and it's going to be fine. So I think it's going to go back to Sandi's point about that marketing piece and what people's marketing look like. those are going to be the folks that you attract.
Yeah.
Rickey, I can give you all sorts of great restaurants to go to while you're in the Starbucks area.
Perfect.
You're tired of camp food.
Love it.
Cory, I want to come back to your comment around that, you're going through a process right now of being more reflective of the community that you represent. Like, can you give us a little bit of insight as to what that process looks like or how you're going about that?
Well, it really starts from within the leadership of the organization. I've taken over an organization that has had the same leadership for about 15 years. Nothing wrong with that, but fresh set of eyes, a change in, the industry's evolving. At times, you have to start from within and look at your board makeup, and starts at the top. And so I've made it very clear to my board and our stakeholders that this is the direction we're going to go, and everybody agrees. And we'll say, well, why haven't we done that? Well, I don't know why we didn't do that. Well, sometimes you just got to ask the questions, be ready to get be ready to hear answers and comments. But I think at times you just got to be able to ask the question and involve people in that discussion. And sometimes those discussions are not easy to make, but I've, in my area, sometimes Black and brown community or the LGBTQ community, the question will be, do we feel safe enough to travel to the area?
Right.
And I think that starts first in your messaging and, who makes up the message and what's the message look like. And, we are, our messaging will be diverse and it will be filled with local people and, that live and work right in our communities. So I think it's just be daring enough to ask the question. Many of you, I don't know many of you, and I'm pretty much a bull in the china shop. So we might not have had an Amazing for All campaign if I just didn't run with it and face the questions later. But it's a passion that you have to believe in it and then go, and don't be afraid. I've made many of the mistakes in my day, but those mistakes have made me a stronger person with my beliefs. So
that's awesome. Thanks for sharing. Okay, I'm just doing a time check here because we want to open it up for questions, and I committed to Jeremy that I would have our Q&A and everything wrapped up by 6:30. Final question here, best memory of the LGBT Chamber of Illinois? Apart from tonight's March Mix and Mingle, of course.
So mine, I date back into the chamber for about 14 years ago. The first time I stepped in the doors, and was a board member for about 8 years. And one of my favorite events was the chili cook-off that was at Sidetrack every year. It was, and for me, just being in the industry, one of my main goals was to make it more to have more hospitality to people in the chamber, and the chili cook-off was just that way to do it. We'd go to Sidetrack and we'd have probably up to about 20 different restaurants making their best chili, and it would happen in, I think, March. And man, oh man, was it a fun time, and that was one of my favorite events with the chamber.
That's awesome. That's
Bring
great.
back the chili cook-off.
Bring back chili cook-off. Yeah, there we go. 5-star rating. What about you, Rickey?
For me, it was like the number of the mix and mingles. So this, but in person. I miss people so much. I'm an extrovert. Help me. But the mix and mingles, and the fact that there were always people that were eager to chat and eager to network and eager to introduce you to everyone. And I just felt like my time spent in the chamber, which I hope to be back there one day, is just it was just full of people who are always looking to help and see who they can introduce you to. And for me, that was awesome.
Great, awesome. Cory.
Yeah, I think just network. You know, we're all wired to be with people, and like Rickey said, I think just the fact that we can't be in a room and in person. I say I wouldn't have had technical difficulties if we were in a room and in person. So those type of networking events, and that's how you get to know one another and progress in relationships and business and friendships. And so those type of events. And I know they'll be back someday and maybe in some different form, but we'll be ready for that day.
Yeah, absolutely. Human interaction and connection is just so powerful and so wonderful. Before I hand back to Jeremy, I just want to shout out and say thank you to Jeremy and Matt and the board of the Chamber. And you know, it's been a wonderful journey as a business, being your partner and getting to know and have new connections here. So we couldn't be more honored to be your partner and part of this community and learn from everyone. So you know, from Andrew and Kristen and Mary on the TimeZoneOne side, I know every time we have a meeting with the Chamber and with Jeremy, it's just and the board, it's just such a inspiring and invigorating conversation and dialogue. So I want to say thanks for having me personally tonight. And Jeremy, I will hand back to you for some Q&A.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Daniel, and definitely to our panel. Definitely either type your questions or if you want to ask a question, you can raise your hand or just unmute yourself and come off. But again, thank you, everyone. And so I was so excited to get to the conversation. I didn't even preference why we were focused on LGBTQ tourism tonight. But if you all remember last month when we kicked off our 25th anniversary, we were joined by Tracy Bame, one of the founders of the LGBT Chamber, and Latanya Fortier-Lyles, one of our board members. And you know, if you remember, Tracy talked a lot about some of the early days and what some of the early initiatives were of the Chamber, and being committed to tourism, promoting the city of Chicago to LGBTQ tours, bringing LGBTQ activities to Chicago was a really big initiative of some of those early days for the Chamber. And so we're super excited and thank all of you tonight for joining us to talk a little bit more about what's been happening across these industries as it relates to LGBTQ inclusion, what's been happening in the industries, and especially what we see to come in the future as it relates to LGBTQ tourism. And so I have a couple of questions, and again, we'll invite folks to either unmute themselves or drop something in the chat box, and then otherwise we'll head to our trivia at the end of this. So I guess a question that I'll start off with is right now, most of our members at the Chamber are, not in the sort of tourism industry. And so I could imagine and assume that, many of them still like to do business with those tours, either letting them know about their services or trying to do business with those folks while they're in town on their trip. Do you have any advice for sort of professional services-based businesses or any sort of business that is just not in the tourism industry? What are some ways that they can be proactive or smart about engaging those LGBTQ folks and other LGBTQ business owners when they come to visit Chicago or some of those other destinations across Illinois? Any suggestions on how we could do that in a smart or thoughtful way?
Well, I think just as it pertains to the hotels, just reaching out to the hotels. Hotels are very receptive to local small businesses. And even going a step further, small women business owned women-owned businesses. So even just reaching out to the hotels direct and saying, hey, this is who I am. This is my service. And if it makes sense, then let's do business. But just not being afraid, especially right now, when everything is about, companies are really trying to promote local and diversity. I think it's very important. So just take that shot and reach out.
I think also a reminder that hotels and restaurants and venues need most of the services that the folks, members of the chamber provide. I cannot tell you how often, I don't know if you still do the actual physical book, probably not, because that's, yep, 105 here. But like I kept that book on my desk, and when I needed something, I would just literally go through that. I think there's a digital version that started maybe right before I left, but like going through that digital version and looking up, oh, I need somebody who can do this, or I need, like, just connecting with folks that way, and knowing that whatever service you're offering, it is very likely that a hospitality outlet needs that. And once you have that great relationship, like Sandi was talking about, people are going to refer business, because hospitality is family. And as soon as you trust someone, then you overload them and overwhelm them with referrals.
And I would suggest a great relationship with Choose Chicago and their network of members. And I know Sandi works with them closely, and Daniel, and also staying connected with maybe on a larger scale with the Illinois Office of Tourism. But Choose Chicago would be plugged in and with all the major events. And as Rickey said, there's so many services that your members can provide to the industry. And everybody needs a little help right now in terms of connecting with each other. And Choose obviously has that deep connection with the hospitality and tourism industry in the city, and stay connected with, there are 38 destination marketing organizations in the state. I'm one of the smaller ones, but Choose is the biggest, and we represent almost all 102 counties. So stay connected to that network as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I will save all of my other questions and just email you guys and just get the personal info for myself. And so that way we can spend the rest of the time devoted to tonight's networking activity. So huge thank you to our panelists for joining us. Again, unless someone has a question, type it in there, but huge thank you to our to our panelists. Greatly appreciate all of you being here with us today. I know that we will continue partnering with all of you in some sort of capacity. Cory, as soon as you said there were a community of LGBTQ folks in Alton, we were already like, boom, we're going to be reaching out to him to make that connection happen. So we're excited to have you as a new partner in engaging your community as we continue to expand across the state of Illinois. I'm excited to have all of our members here and all of you. And so huge thank you to our panelists again for joining us. And so awesome. Thank you all so much. And then with that, I am going to end the recording of our Zoom. Thank all of you folks for watching this awesome Zoom. Thank you.